It was our 23rd wedding anniversary, and I had planned a surprise dinner at Giovanni's, the cozy Italian restaurant where Emily and I had celebrated countless milestones over the years. As I walked in, the aroma of garlic and marinara sauce enveloped me, stirring memories of happier times. Spotting Emily wasn't difficult. She was seated near the window, bathed in the soft glow of candlelight. But what I saw next shattered the romantic illusion I had carefully crafted in my mind. She wasn't alone. A man sat across from her, his hand resting casually on the table between them. They were deep in conversation, their laughter floating across the room. My heart sank as I watched them lean closer, their faces inches apart. I stood rooted to the spot, unable to tear my gaze away. This couldn't be happening. Not Emily, my wife of 23 years, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. They leaned in and kissed, a fleeting touch of lips that felt like a punch to my gut. The world around me blurred as emotions collided within. Betrayal, anger, heartbreak. It was all there, wrapped up in that single moment. I turned and stumbled out of the restaurant, my mind racing with disbelief. How could she do this to me? To us? Outside, I leaned against the cool brick wall, struggling to catch my breath. The night air was crisp, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging inside me. Questions swirled. How long had this been going on? Who was he? Did anyone else know? But one thing was clear. My life would never be the same after tonight. The innocence and trust I had held sacred in our marriage had been shattered in an instant. As I drove home, the image of Emily and the other man replayed in my mind like a cruel loop. I needed answers. I needed to confront her, to hear her explanation, no matter how painful it might be. Little did I know, this night of revelation was just the beginning of a journey that would lead me down a path of vengeance and self-discovery, a journey I never imagined I would embark upon. I parked the car in our driveway, the engine ticking as it cooled. Each tick felt like a countdown, marking the seconds until I would have to face Emily and the devastating truth I had witnessed. Entering the house, the familiar scent of lavender greeted me, a scent that once brought comfort and familiarity, but now felt like a mocking reminder of the life I thought we shared. Emily was sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone with a forced nonchalance that failed to hide the tension in her posture. She looked up as I entered, her smile faltering at the sight of my expression. "Hey, you're home early," she said, attempting to sound casual. "Yeah," I replied tersely, my voice betraying the storm of emotions within. "Where were you tonight?" Her eyes flickered, a brief hesitation that spoke volumes. "Out with friends," she answered quickly, too quickly. I closed the distance between us, my heart pounding in my chest. "Emily, don't lie to me. I saw you." Her facade cracked, and for a moment raw guilt flashed across her features before she composed herself. "You saw what?" Her voice was steady, but I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes. "At Giovanni's," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "With him." Her gaze dropped, unable to meet mine. I can explain," she began, her words stumbling over the weight of betrayal. "Explain what, Emily?" I demanded, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. "How long has this been going on?" She hesitated, her silence confirming my worst fears. "It's not what you think," she finally said, her voice trembling. "It's complicated." Complicated. The word echoed hollowly in the room, a feeble attempt to justify the shattered trust between us. Anger surged within me, followed by a deep ache of heartbreak that threatened to consume everything. "You've been lying to me," I said, my voice hoarse with emotion. "All this time." She reached out, her hand trembling as she touched my arm. "Please, let me explain," she pleaded, her eyes desperate, but I couldn't bear to hear more lies. I pulled away, shaking my head in disbelief. "I need some time," I said quietly, turning away from her. As I walked out of the room, leaving Emily standing alone in the silence of our home, I realized that the love and trust we had built over 2 decades had been shattered in a single night. The heartbreak was overwhelming, leaving me adrift in a sea of pain and unanswered questions, knowing that our marriage would never be the same again. The days that followed were a blur of anguish and disbelief. I couldn't escape the image of Emily with that man, their laughter and intimacy etched into my mind like a cruel tattoo. Every corner of our home held memories tainted by betrayal, and I found myself avoiding places where we had once shared joy and laughter. Emily attempted to bridge the growing chasm between us. Her attempts at conversation often met with icy silence from my end. Despite my anger and pain, a part of me yearned for answers, to understand why she had turned to someone else after all we had shared. One evening, unable to ignore the turmoil any longer, I found myself standing in front of Emily, my heart heavy with the weight of unspoken words. "We need to talk," I said quietly, my voice strained with emotion. She nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and apprehension. "I know," she replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Sitting across from each other in our living room, the air thick with unspoken tension, I struggled to find the right words. "Why, Emily?" I finally asked, my voice breaking with the effort to keep my composure. She hesitated, her gaze dropping to her hands folded in her lap. I don't know," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Things haven't been right between us for a while, and I felt neglected." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Neglected. Guilt washed over me as I realized how my career had consumed me, leaving little time and energy for the person who had once been my everything. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she continued, her voice pleading for understanding. "It was a mistake." "A mistake that lasted how long?" I asked bitterly, unable to mask the pain in my voice. She looked up, tears glistening in her eyes. "A few months," she admitted quietly. I thought maybe it would make me feel alive again." Alive. The word echoed in the silence that followed, a stark reminder of the distance that had grown between us, unnoticed until it threatened to tear us apart. I struggled to comprehend her betrayal, grappling with the realization that our marriage had been crumbling beneath the surface while I had remained oblivious. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said finally, the words heavy with the weight of our shattered trust. Her face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never meant to hurt you." But the apology felt hollow against the backdrop of my pain. How could I trust her again, knowing that the foundation of our marriage had been shaken to its core? As I left her sitting alone in the dimly lit room, her tears a silent testament to the damage we had wrought upon each other, I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with uncertainty and heartache. The confrontation had laid bare the fractures in our relationship, leaving me to wonder if there was any hope left for us, or if the damage was too deep to repair. In the days that followed our tense confrontation, I found myself grappling with a mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, and a gnawing need for closure. Emily's confession had opened wounds I didn't know existed, leaving me to navigate a turbulent sea of uncertainty. Unable to trust her words alone, I made a decision to uncover the truth. It was a choice born out of desperation and a need for clarity, to understand the extent of Emily's betrayal and whether there was any hope of salvaging what remained of our shattered marriage. I reached out to a discreet private investigator recommended by a friend, a man named Jack Reynolds, whose reputation for uncovering secrets preceded him. We met in a nondescript coffee shop downtown, the air thick with the scent of freshly ground beans and muted conversations. Jack was a middle-aged man with a weathered face that spoke of years spent in the shadows, his eyes sharp and calculating as he listened to my story. I laid out the details of Emily's affair, the pain still raw in my voice as I recounted the night at Giovanni's and the subsequent confrontation. "You want proof," Jack stated matter-of-factly, his voice a low rumble that cut through the haze of my emotions. I nodded, my jaw clenched with determination. "I need to know the truth." Jack scribbled notes on a pad of paper, his pen scratching against the surface in rhythmic strokes. "I'll need details, times, places, anything that might help me track her movements," he said, his gaze fixed on me with unwavering intensity. I provided him with what little information I had: Emily's routine, the places she frequented, and the name of the man I had seen her with, Mark. Jack assured me he would discreetly gather the evidence I needed, his words a lifeline in the storm of uncertainty that had become my life. Days turned into weeks as I waited anxiously for Jack's findings. Each passing moment felt like an eternity, filled with restless nights and haunted by the specter of Emily's betrayal. Then, one rainy afternoon, Jack called me, a terse voice on the other end of the line, his words carefully chosen. "I've got something for you," he said, his tone devoid of emotion. We met again in the same coffee shop, the air heavy with the weight of what was to come. Jack slid a manila envelope across the table, its contents a testament to the unraveling of my world. Inside were photographs, grainy images captured from a distance, but unmistakable in their clarity. Emily and Mark, together in moments of intimacy that echoed the pain in my heart. They laughed, they kissed, and they shared stolen moments that spoke volumes of their betrayal. I stared at the photographs, my hands trembling with a mix of anger and despair. There was no denying the truth. They confirmed everything Emily had tried to deny, tearing apart the fragile remnants of trust that had still lingered within me. "Thank you," I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion as I looked up at Jack. He nodded solemnly, his gaze unwavering. "I'm sorry," he said simply, his words a silent acknowledgement of the pain he had helped unearth. As I left the coffee shop, the envelope clutched tightly in my hand, I knew that the evidence Jack had uncovered marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one defined by betrayal, anger, and a relentless pursuit of justice. The truth had been laid bare, leaving me to confront the harsh reality of Emily's infidelity and the devastating impact it had on everything I held dear. Armed with the photographs that Jack had painstakingly gathered, I retreated into a world of solitude and contemplation. Each image burned into my mind, a painful reminder of Emily's betrayal and the shattered trust that had once defined our marriage. I laid out the photographs on the kitchen table, the muted morning light casting shadows across their glossy surfaces. Emily and Mark, smiling, laughing, embracing, froze in moments of intimacy that felt like knives twisting in my heart. I traced a finger along the edge of one photograph, unable to tear my gaze away from Emily's face. Her smile, once a source of comfort and joy, now mocked me with its deceit. How could she have done this to us? The evidence Jack had provided left no room for doubt. It was a visceral punch to the gut, forcing me to confront the harsh reality of Emily's infidelity and the depth of her betrayal. That evening, Emily returned home to find me sitting in the dimly lit living room, the photographs spread out before me like a silent accusation. Her eyes widened in shock as she took in the scene, her hand flying to her mouth in a futile attempt to stifle a gasp. I can explain," she stammered, her voice trembling with guilt. I looked up at her, my expression a mask of restrained anger and pain. "Explain what, Emily?" My voice was low, each word weighted with the weight of betrayal. "How long has this been going on?" She sank onto the couch, her shoulders slumping under the weight of my accusation. I don't know what to say," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "Don't," I interrupted sharply, my voice cracking with emotion. "Just don't." The silence that followed was suffocating, filled with unspoken words and shattered dreams. I had hoped, naively perhaps, that there would be some explanation, some justification that could ease the agony of betrayal. But the photograph spoke louder than any words ever could. "I never meant to hurt you," she pleaded, her voice barely audible above the roar of my thoughts. "I was confused, lost." Her words faded into the background as my mind raced with a torrent of emotions, anger, sorrow, and a deep-seated sense of injustice. How could she have thrown away everything we had built together for a fleeting moment of passion? "You've destroyed us," I said finally, my voice hoarse with anguish. "Everything we had, it's gone." Emily reached out, her hand trembling as she touched my arm. "Please," she begged, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Let me try to make it right." But I pulled away, unable to bear the weight of her touch. "There's nothing left to salvage," I said bitterly, my heart aching with the finality of my words. As she watched me walk away, leaving her alone in the silence of our home, I knew that the photographs had irrevocably altered the course of our lives. The evidence of her betrayal lay scattered across the table, a stark reminder of the irreversible damage that had been done. In the aftermath of confronting Emily with the damning evidence of her affair, I found myself consumed by a turbulent mix of emotions, anger, betrayal, and a burning desire for justice. The photographs Jack had provided were a constant presence in my mind, their images etched into my memory like scars. As the days stretched into weeks, I retreated into a solitary existence, grappling with the shattered remnants of our marriage. Emily's tearful apologies and promises of reconciliation fell on deaf ears, drowned out by the echo of her betrayal. Yet amidst the turmoil, a seed of determination took root. a need for closure that transcended mere forgiveness. I couldn't undo what had been done, but I could ensure that Emily faced the consequences of her actions. I began to meticulously plan my revenge, a calculated strategy born out of pain and a thirst for retribution. The anger that simmered beneath the surface fueled my resolve, driving me to take action where once I had felt powerless. The first step was to ensure that Emily understood the gravity of her betrayal. I made it clear that reconciliation was off the table, that our marriage had been irreparably damaged by her infidelity. Her tearful pleas for forgiveness only strengthened my resolve to see this through. Next, I turned my attention to Mark, the man who had betrayed not just me, but his own commitments. I dug deeper into his background, uncovering details that painted a picture of a man with his own vulnerabilities and weaknesses. Armed with this knowledge, I began to subtly sow seeds of doubt and discord in Mark's life, a psychological warfare designed to destabilize him, much like he had destabilized my marriage. Anonymous messages, carefully placed hints, and orchestrated encounters left him questioning his own choices and motivations. Meanwhile, I ensured that Emily faced the consequences of her actions in more tangible ways. I meticulously documented her affair and compiled a dossier of evidence, emails, text messages, and witness accounts that painted a damning picture of her betrayal. With the help of legal counsel, I began divorce proceedings, leveraging the evidence to secure a settlement that left Emily reeling. Her assets were divided, her social standing tarnished by the revelation of her infidelity. The repercussions of her actions echoed through every aspect of her life. Yet even as my revenge took shape, I found myself questioning the cost of my actions. Was this truly justice? Or was I merely perpetuating a cycle of pain and retribution? The line between victim and perpetrator blurred, leaving me to wrestle with the moral implications of my choices. But amidst the uncertainty, one thing remained clear. The plan I had set in motion was irrevocable. Emily and Mark had shattered my world with their betrayal, and now I would ensure that they faced the consequences of their actions, no matter the cost. With divorce proceedings underway and the evidence of Emily's affair meticulously compiled, I turned my focus to Mark, the man who had knowingly crossed the line with my wife, shattering the trust and sanctity of our marriage. He had become my next target in the unfolding saga of betrayal and revenge. Armed with the information I had gathered about Mark, his habits, vulnerabilities, and personal weaknesses, I embarked on a campaign of psychological warfare designed to undermine his stability and sow discord in his life. The first phase of my plan involved subtle but calculated actions. I anonymously sent Mark cryptic messages, carefully crafted to plant seeds of doubt and suspicion. Messages that hinted at someone knowing about his affair. Messages that suggested his secrets were not as well hidden as he believed. I orchestrated chance encounters, bumping into him at places he frequented, always with a knowing look that hinted at shared secrets. These encounters left Mark visibly unsettled, his composure slipping as paranoia took hold. Next, I targeted his professional life. Using my connections and discreet inquiries, I subtly spread rumors about Mark within his professional circle. Rumors of unethical behavior, of indiscretions that threatened his reputation and standing. The aim was not just to tarnish his image, but to destabilize him emotionally and psychologically. I wanted Mark to experience the same sense of vulnerability and betrayal that had consumed me since discovering his affair with Emily. As weeks passed, the effects of my psychological warfare began to manifest. Mark became increasingly paranoid, his once confident demeanor giving way to moments of hesitation and uncertainty. He withdrew from social gatherings, isolated himself from mutual acquaintances, and seemed haunted by an unseen specter of guilt. Meanwhile, Emily struggled to comprehend the extent of the fallout from her actions. The dissolution of our marriage and the public exposure of her affair had left her reeling, her once stable life unraveling before her eyes. Through it all, I maintained a facade of detachment, a deliberate strategy to magnify their sense of isolation and despair. I wanted them to understand the consequences of their betrayal, to feel the weight of their actions bearing down upon them with relentless force. But as I immersed myself deeper into the role of orchestrator of their downfall, a nagging doubt began to gnaw at the edges of my conscience. Was I justified in inflicting this level of pain and suffering? Was revenge truly the answer to healing the wounds inflicted upon me? Yet, amidst the turmoil of conflicting emotions, One thing remained certain. The psychological warfare I had unleashed was reshaping their lives, forcing them to confront the consequences of their actions in ways they had never imagined. Mark. The name echoed in my mind with a mixture of disdain and fascination. He was more than just the man who had betrayed me. He was the catalyst for the upheaval that had torn apart my life. Understanding him became crucial, not just for my revenge, but for my own peace of mind. I delved deeper into Mark's background, driven by a need to comprehend his motivations and unravel the complexities of his character. What had drawn him to Emily? What had led him to betray his own commitments and entangle himself in the web of deceit that now defined our lives? Through discreet inquiries and careful observation, I pieced together fragments of Mark's life. A successful businessman with a reputation for charm and ambition. He exuded confidence in public, his charismatic demeanor masking the vulnerabilities that lurked beneath the surface. But beneath the facade of success, I unearthed cracks in his armor, personal struggles, insecurities, and a history of questionable decisions that hinted at a darker side beneath the polished exterior. Mark had secrets of his own, secrets that made him susceptible to the psychological warfare I had initiated. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I intensified my efforts to destabilize Mark's world. I targeted his insecurities with precision, sending anonymous messages that preyed on his fears, orchestrating situations that played on his guilt and paranoia. I ensured that every aspect of his life became a battleground, a relentless onslaught designed to chip away at his carefully constructed facade and expose the flaws within. His professional reputation suffered as rumors of indiscretion spread, while his personal life descended into chaos under the weight of suspicion and doubt. Meanwhile, Emily remained a reluctant player in the drama unfolding around her. The fallout from her affair with Mark had left her isolated and vulnerable, grappling with the consequences of her actions in ways she had never anticipated. As I watched Mark's world unravel, a sense of grim satisfaction mingled with the lingering doubts that plagued my conscience. Had I gone too far? Was my quest for revenge clouding my judgment, blinding me to the collateral damage left in its wake? But with each revelation of Mark's vulnerabilities, each crack in his facade that exposed the truth beneath, I found a twisted sense of vindication. He had played a pivotal role in the destruction of my marriage, and now he was paying the price for his betrayal. Yet amidst the chaos and uncertainty, one question remained unanswered. What would come next in this relentless pursuit of justice and retribution? With Mark increasingly vulnerable under the weight of my orchestrated psychological warfare, I turned my attention to further amplifying his distress and isolation. Every move became calculated, every action designed to deepen the rifts in his already fragile life. I leveraged my network to subtly manipulate Mark's professional relationships, planting seeds of doubt and suspicion that eroded the trust others had placed in him. Anonymous tips and strategically timed revelations further tarnished his reputation, casting shadows over his once flourishing career. Meanwhile, I continued to exploit Mark's personal insecurities and fears. Anonymous messages arrived at his doorstep, each one carefully crafted to provoke paranoia and uncertainty. They hinted at knowledge of his affair, suggesting that his secrets were on the brink of exposure. I orchestrated encounters that left Mark questioning his own sanity. Chance meetings with mutual acquaintances who alluded to his indiscretions. Whispered conversations that echoed with accusations he couldn't refute. The psychological toll on Mark was palpable. His once confident demeanor gave way to moments of frantic desperation, his attempts to maintain control slipping through his fingers like sand. He became increasingly isolated, withdrawing from social circles and retreating into a solitary existence, haunted by the specter of guilt. At home, Emily struggled to make sense of the chaos engulfing her life. The fallout from her affair with Mark had left her reeling, her emotions a turbulent storm of regret and remorse. She pleaded for forgiveness, for a chance to rebuild what had been lost. But I remained steadfast in my resolve. The wounds of betrayal ran too deep, the trust irreparably shattered. Emily's pleas fell on deaf ears as I focused on dismantling the foundations of Mark's life, the man who had willingly crossed the line and disrupted everything I held dear. Yet amidst the orchestrated chaos and the relentless pursuit of justice, a nagging doubt began to gnaw at the edges of my conscience. Had I become the monster in this twisted tale of betrayal and revenge? Was my quest for retribution blinding me to the collateral damage left in its wake. As the lines between victim and perpetrator blurred, I grappled with the moral implications of my actions. The psychological warfare I had unleashed had reshaped their lives in ways I had never anticipated, leaving me to question whether justice could truly be served through vengeance alone. But with each revelation of Mark's unraveling facade, each crack in his carefully constructed world, I found myself inexorably drawn deeper into the darkness of my own making. The quest for justice had become a relentless pursuit, a path fraught with uncertainty and moral ambiguity, yet driven by a need for closure and the hope of reclaiming what had been lost. As the psychological warfare against Mark intensified, I found myself consumed by a singular purpose: to ensure that he faced the full consequences of his betrayal. Every carefully orchestrated move was a step towards reclaiming a sense of justice and restoring the shattered fragments of my life. The next phase of my revenge took on a more direct approach. Armed with the evidence of Mark's indiscretions and vulnerabilities, I orchestrated a series of calculated confrontations designed to confront him with the consequences of his actions. I engineered encounters where Mark was confronted by individuals who had been impacted by his deceit: a former colleague whose career had been tarnished by association, a mutual friend who had unwittingly been drawn into the web of lies. Each encounter served to underscore the ripple effects of his betrayal, forcing him to confront the collateral damage left in his wake. Simultaneously, I continued to exploit his vulnerabilities through anonymous messages and subtle manipulations. I planted seeds of doubt within his closest relationships, sowing discord and suspicion that eroded the fragile support network he had once relied upon. At the same time, I ensured that Emily faced the consequences of her actions in more tangible ways. Legal proceedings progressed with the evidence of her affair meticulously presented, leaving her defenseless against the mounting accusations and the stark reality of her betrayal. Divorce proceedings reached a bitter conclusion, with settlements and agreements finalized that reflected the irreversible damage to our marriage. Emily's world crumbled around her, her once stable life now fractured by the fallout of her choices. Through it all, I maintained a facade of detachment, a calculated strategy to amplify their sense of isolation and despair. The psychological warfare had taken its toll, reshaping their lives in ways that mirrored the devastation they had wrought upon mine. Yet amidst the relentless pursuit of revenge, a profound emptiness lingered, a void that no amount of retribution could fill. The quest for justice had become a relentless obsession, driving me forward even as I grappled with the moral implications of my actions. As I watched the pieces of their lives fall apart, a sense of grim satisfaction mingled with a growing sense of disillusionment. Had I truly achieved justice, or had I become a prisoner of my own desire for vengeance? But with each orchestrated confrontation and calculated move, I found myself inexorably drawn deeper into the darkness of my own making. Revenge had taken shape, transforming the shattered remnants of my life into a battlefield of retribution and redemption. A path fraught with uncertainty and moral ambiguity, yet driven by a relentless pursuit of closure and the hope of reclaiming what had been lost. With the foundations of Mark's and Emily's lives already shaken by the psychological warfare I had orchestrated, I turned my attention to the final phase of my revenge, a decisive move that would expose their betrayal to the public eye and ensure they faced the full consequences of their actions. I meticulously compiled the evidence of their affair, emails, text messages, and witness statements that painted a damning picture of their deceit. With the help of legal counsel and strategic planning, I orchestrated a carefully timed release of this evidence to the media. The public exposure of their affair was swift and merciless. News outlets picked up the story, splashing headlines across front pages and online platforms. Social media buzzed with speculation and condemnation as the details of their betrayal became fodder for public scrutiny. Mark's carefully curated image as a successful businessman and pillar of the community crumbled under the weight of public outrage. His professional reputation, already tarnished by rumors and whispers, now faced irreparable damage as clients and colleagues distanced themselves from the scandal. Emily, too, faced the harsh glare of public scrutiny. Her social circles, once a source of comfort and belonging, now became arenas of judgment and condemnation. Friends and acquaintances whispered behind closed doors, casting shadows of doubt and betrayal upon her once respected reputation. The fallout from the public exposure reverberated through every aspect of their lives. Both Mark and Emily found themselves isolated and ostracized, their lives irreversibly altered by the consequences of their choices. Yet amidst the chaos and turmoil, a sense of closure began to take root within me. The public exposure was not just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my voice and asserting the truth in the face of deceit. It was a declaration that their actions would not go unnoticed or unpunished. As I watched the aftermath of their betrayal unfold in the public eye, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The quest for justice had exacted a heavy toll, leaving me to wrestle with the moral implications of my actions and the irreversible changes wrought upon all our lives. But amidst the wreckage of their reputations and the shattered remnants of our past, one thing remained clear. The public exposure of their affair marked the culmination of my journey towards closure and the hope of reclaiming what had been lost in the wake of their betrayal. The public exposure of Emily's affair with Mark sent shockwaves through her world, shattering the facade of stability and respectability she had carefully cultivated over the years. As the scandal unfolded in the relentless glare of media scrutiny, Emily found herself at the epicenter of a storm she could no longer control. The days that followed were a blur of relentless scrutiny and relentless scrutiny. Every aspect of Emily's life was scrutinized in the public eye, from her professional reputation to her personal relationships. Former friends and colleagues distanced themselves, their trust shattered by the revelation of her betrayal. At home, the once familiar walls of our shared life became suffocating reminders of everything she had lost. Our home, once a sanctuary of love and companionship, now echoed with the emptiness of broken promises and shattered trust. Emily's attempts at reconciliation were met with cold indifference from me. The wounds of her betrayal ran too deep, the trust between us irreparably shattered. Her tearful apologies and pleas for forgiveness fell on deaf ears, drowned out by the deafening silence that had come to define our interactions. Financially, Emily faced the harsh reality of our divorce settlement. With assets divided and her social standing tarnished, she found herself navigating a future that bore little resemblance to the life she had once known. The fallout from her affair had left her isolated and vulnerable, grappling with the consequences of her actions in ways she had never anticipated. As the dust settled on the wreckage of her life, Emily struggled to make sense of the chaos that had engulfed her. The once promising future she had envisioned lay in ruins, replaced by the harsh reality of a life forever changed by her choices. Yet, amidst the devastation and despair, a flicker of resilience began to emerge within Emily. She began to rebuild, slowly and tentatively, finding solace in the few remaining constants in her life. Friends who stood by her side despite the scandal, and a newfound sense of independence forged in the crucible of adversity. But the scars of her betrayal remained, a constant reminder of the irreversible damage wrought upon our marriage and the lives we had once shared. Emily's world had crumbled around her, leaving her to confront the harsh consequences of her actions and the painful process of rebuilding her shattered life. In the aftermath of the tumultuous events that had reshaped our lives, I found myself grappling with a profound sense of emptiness and uncertainty. The quest for revenge had exacted a heavy toll, leaving behind a landscape scarred by betrayal, regret, and irreversible loss. Emily's world had crumbled in the wake of the public exposure of her affair with Mark. The once stable foundations of her life lay in ruins, replaced by the jagged edges of shattered trust and fractured relationships. She navigated the aftermath with a mixture of resilience and sorrow, facing the consequences of her actions with a newfound sense of introspection. For my part, the relentless pursuit of justice had left me questioning the morality of my actions. The lines between victim and perpetrator had blurred, leaving me to wrestle with the weight of my decisions and the profound impact they had on everyone involved. Yet, amidst the wreckage of our marriage and the scars of betrayal, there were moments of clarity and reflection. I began to piece together the fragments of my life, finding solace in the support of friends who stood by me during the darkest days. The journey towards healing was slow and arduous, marked by moments of profound grief and fleeting glimpses of hope. I confronted my own vulnerabilities and insecurities, grappling with the wounds that had been inflicted upon me and the lingering pain of betrayal. Emily, too, embarked on a journey of self-discovery and redemption. She sought forgiveness where she could, reconciling with the consequences of her actions and finding strength in the resilience that had carried her through the storm. As time passed, wounds began to heal, albeit leaving behind scars that served as reminders of the trials we had endured. The specter of betrayal lingered in the background, a cautionary tale of the fragility of trust and the consequences of crossing moral boundaries. Through it all, the lessons learned were profound and transformative. We had both been tested in ways we never imagined, confronting our own shortcomings and vulnerabilities with a newfound sense of humility and introspection. The aftermath of Emily's affair with Mark had reshaped our lives irrevocably, leaving us to navigate a future defined by resilience, forgiveness, and the enduring hope of rebuilding what had been lost. In the wake of the tumultuous events that had shaken our lives to the core, a sense of quiet acceptance settled over me. The wounds of betrayal had begun to heal, leaving behind scars that served as a testament to the resilience and strength that had carried me through the storm. Emily and I had chosen separate paths, each embarking on a journey of self-discovery and redemption. The specter of her affair with Mark lingered in the background, a painful reminder of the fragility of trust and the consequences of crossing moral boundaries. For me, moving on meant confronting the demons that had haunted me in the aftermath of Emily's betrayal. I sought solace in the support of friends and loved ones, finding comfort in their unwavering presence during moments of doubt and reflection. I immersed myself in work, channeling my energies into projects that challenged and fulfilled me. Professional success became a beacon of hope in the midst of personal turmoil, offering a sense of purpose and direction in the aftermath of upheaval. Yet amidst the healing and the pursuit of personal growth, there were moments of lingering sadness and regret. The scars of betrayal ran deep, leaving me to grapple with the lingering pain of lost trust and shattered dreams. Emily, too, embarked on her own journey of self-discovery and reconciliation. She sought forgiveness where she could, confronting the consequences of her actions with a humility and grace that spoke to her inner strength. Our paths crossed occasionally, each encounter tinged with a bittersweet mix of nostalgia and reflection. We exchanged polite pleasantries, acknowledging the shared history that had once bound us together in love and companionship. As time passed, the wounds began to heal, paving the way for a future defined by resilience and forgiveness. The lessons learned were profound and transformative, shaping our individual paths in ways that defied the pain of betrayal. Moving on meant embracing the complexities of life and the inevitability of change. It meant finding peace amidst the chaos and forging ahead with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. The journey towards healing was ongoing, marked by moments of profound introspection and fleeting glimpses of hope. Emily and I had both been tested in ways that had forever altered the course of our lives, leaving us to navigate a future defined by resilience, forgiveness, and the enduring hope of rebuilding what had been lost. In the quiet moments of reflection that followed the tumultuous journey of betrayal and revenge, I found myself confronting the profound lessons learned and the transformative impact of the trials we had endured. The scars of Emily's affair with Mark had faded with time, replaced by a sense of acceptance and forgiveness that transcended the pain of betrayal. I had emerged from the crucible of adversity with a newfound understanding of resilience and the fragility of trust. Emily had embarked on her own path of redemption, navigating the aftermath of her choices with a humility and grace that spoke to her inner strength. Our paths had diverged, yet the shared history of love and loss remained a poignant reminder of the complexities of human relationships. Through it all, I had learned that revenge was a hollow victory, a fleeting satisfaction that paled in comparison to the healing power of forgiveness. The quest for justice had exacted a heavy toll, leaving behind a landscape scarred by regret and irreversible loss. Yet, amidst the wreckage of our marriage and the scars of betrayal, there were moments of profound growth and introspection. I had confronted my own vulnerabilities and shortcomings, emerging stronger and wiser from the trials that had tested my resolve. As I looked towards the future, I embraced the complexities of life and the inevitability of change. Moving on meant finding peace amidst the chaos and forging ahead with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Emily's journey had mirrored my own, each of us navigating the aftermath of betrayal with courage and resilience. The lessons learned were profound and transformative, shaping our individual paths in ways that defied the pain of the past. In the end, I found solace in the support of friends and loved ones who had stood by me through moments of doubt and reflection. Their unwavering presence became a beacon of hope in the aftermath of upheaval, offering comfort and reassurance as I forged ahead on the path towards healing. And so, as I closed the chapter on the tumultuous saga of betrayal and revenge, I embraced the lessons learned and the resilience that had carried me through the storm. The journey had been arduous and fraught with uncertainty, yet it had ultimately led me to a place of peace and acceptance. As I looked back on the trials we had endured, I found a sense of closure and the enduring hope of rebuilding what had been lost. The story of betrayal and revenge had shaped the contours of my life, leaving behind a legacy of resilience, forgiveness, and the unwavering belief in the transformative power of redemption.